Alright, so in this run I decided to play Spain. I decided to slow the intro part out because I get alt wars, like 3 of them. So I wanted to go over that with some amount of time so I can actually explain it that is on 12.5 times speed. But TLDR, 3 bummer alts join as Aragon, Portugal, and Morocco, and they all declare war on me. So that's an interesting start, I guess. Anyway, Morocco joins later, but as for now, Aragon and Portugal are justifying and declaring war on me. Portugal comes in from that side, Aragon comes from the east. I spawned some mercs, and it's not enough at this point to go against Aragon and Portugal effectively, from what I could tell. But the idea behind that battle over there was to try and knock out Aragon's army in Zaragoza before they could converge earlier. But anyway, roughly around here I think Morocco may join. But I'm building an army in the south, just trying to stabilize my position, trying to take out some loans. There's some Moroccan justification. I spawned one boat that actually does something. I just blocked it straight and that's about it. I spawned some mercs and there goes Portugal and Aragon. Soon after the altars leave, so, typical. But anyway, I sieged the largest province in Portugal, which gives me pretty good access to Lisbon. And Aragon's just over there sieging, I guess, near Zaragoza. At this point, Portugal, Morocco, and Aragon are pretty much losing. Morocco decides to block in and build a fleet. And they actually do, but it may be a little bit too late for that. Politely. Anyway, Morocco arrives, and I spawn some mercs, just coming in. But Aragon exists, and I just beat their army in the north. Well, Morocco just retreats, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, after that, Morocco decides to leave its army right up for the open, and I just beat him over in Spain, and I beat the existing Portuguese army in Lisbon. By now I defeated all 3 of my enemies in Spain. I send a little navy to blockade Portugal's army over in the islands. Roughly by now I think Portugal and Aragon leave just because, altars, they kind of tend to do that. The video is about to speed up to 12.5 times speed if you guys are wondering. It's not going to stay this 2 times speed the entire game. Hopefully. But anyway, right now I think I have a decently free hand in trying to annex Iberia. Since there were player wars against Aragon, Portugal, and Morocco, they tend to have big truces, so at this point I'm trying to invade Aragon and Granada. Just consolidating the regions of Spain that aren't Portugal and Aragon. Also, side note, I don't actually invade Morocco this game, even though I restore some sort of Spanish Empire. Just because I feel like I want to. But anyway, the Aragon AI is still chilling there. They're building a fort over in Barcelona. So, there's that, I guess. There's some wars going on over in Italy. I think there's a Quenio player. I probably butcher that. But there was a Cuneo player. I should probably stop pronouncing stuff like that because I don't want to say something bad in a foreign language and not know about it. But anyway, I annex Aragon. I get modern Spanish-ish borders. I mean, there's also Barcelona north, but also Gibraltar. But anyway, I formed Spain. I still have my little navy in the south, and I have a lot of uncored stuff in Aragon. The Ottomans, for some reason, didn't do the Mamluk conquest war, so, yeah, that happened. And I claim most of Portugal and just hop on in. After beating Portugal's army, I decided to just siege Lisbon directly, and it goes pretty well. It was a bit of a long siege, considering this is on 12.5 times speed, but I'm able to siege down Portugal pretty effectively, and take most of the land I wanted. Portugal is now reduced to just Lisbon. I'm just chilling, basically having the entirety of Iberia before 1500, which is not bad. When I said didn't go into Morocco, I meant in terms of not annexing land in Morocco. There's going to be a future 2v1 against me with Morocco aligning with Britain, and I just beat them quite handily. But after getting sacked like 2 times, Morocco is not quite in a great position to invade me again, assuming a player joined. Potentially. Maybe. But the first war, me spawning in like 700 coins worth of mercenaries at the start of the game wasn't quite ideal for my economy, but I'm still doing fine. I don't actually go bankrupt because of altars or anything like that. But the loan amount is slowly and steadily coming down. It's working quite effectively. But at this point, before I could potentially get my loans to just come to nothing, Morocco and friends politely put down my rolls in Granada for me. And then they just get beaten. I take the square fort over in Morocco. I get some small rebels too. I also have France as an ally, but he doesn't do that much. Yeah, the alliance with France in this game was more of a we agree not to attack each other, not like a proper alliance. But he decides to go into England. That's cool, I guess. But anyway, I go further into Morocco. I'm sacking it again, and I release some lands from Morocco, but not all of Tlemcen, just because I want to mod Moroccan borders. I take some money, not that much. France takes some money. I release Wales from England, so there's a TLDR of that port in the north. But regardless, I'm mostly just stabilizing at this point. Anyway, me and like a couple other people just like talking and chat over here. I'm trying to core Spain at this point. And right about now, we're mostly against like a development war between France and Venice, like they're mostly developing. But that wasn't too much like lone concern to do anything about that. Anyway, this is the part where I was talking about me and France being more of like agreeing us to attack each other than being actual allies, because you just took Mexico. So, you know, there's that. I invade France later to take Mexico back, but it's after the player leaves, so I'd rather not, you know. It's a bit weird to just war someone over a colony if they're a player. It's kind of like, come on. But anyway, now that I have a united Spain, and I have my economy in the green for once, I decided to try and maybe invade Morocco, try and do some stuff. But like, that's mostly just rival wars at this point. I do have some loans, but they're pretty much dying out at this point in the game. And eventually I start dev maxing, so there's that. Noting that France called Mexico, I wanted to get Peru and cut off Peru, so France may not steal another region with gold in the Americas, potentially. And I developed some lands. The server is slowly shrinking at this point, so there's that to note. I take over the Caribbean, well, the big islands in the Caribbean, and I'm slowly like culturally converting some lands to Castilian and Iberia. I'm making my own little green belt in Spain, so that's there, I guess. I developed Toledo, Madrid, and I forget the province in Aragon, but there's a green province in Aragon. Oh, Valencia. I developed Valencia. And also a bunch of other lands in Iberia too, like Lisbon. But other than that, I'm having a pretty solid game at this point. There are going to be some wars a little bit later, but at this point it's interesting to note that Cuneo from earlier colonized the Northeast. And since this is like a colonial nation, France does conquer them, but if France got enough unrest, you might have an independent Cuneo in Northeastern America, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, Venice is almost taken over the entirety of Italy. They do leave soon, I think, which leaves me open to just grabbing Naples. And honestly, just getting partitioned. Well, like sacked and partitioned, but still. I form an army up at this point. I'm planning to attack Venice and, take Naples. And I'm also trying to cut off South America directly, so there's that. One thing I wasn't expecting, that the Venetian AI would just, go through France. I thought they'd actually, take a naval route so I could use my navy. But that didn't really happen that much, and I just sacked northern Italy anyway. I formed some more troops up and try and get them in order, moving them, rearranging them to try and, maybe attack their armies, but not before I siege Venice, which I did there. At this point, I'm not doing that great economically, but I take over some region of Naples, so that's cool. I didn't take all of Naples at this point, but I took some of it. France left temporarily, so there's that. And Venice gets invaded again, I think, pretty soon. I tell France that his culture map exists, so yeah, there's that. And Georgia gets a colony somewhat soon. Anyway, at this point in the game, the Ottomans are preparing for war against basically the Balkans. France is re-allied to me, which was pretty good in me trying to invade Venice again to try and get my land in Naples. Well, my claimed land anyway. The Ottomans snagged Romania. I think they're planning to go further into the Balkans, like in Venice. And also Hungary too, I think. But Austria, they're a player, so there's that, I guess. They don't do that much as of yet, but they're just chilling for now. Anyway, Venice is a player now, so enjoying this Venice, so that's mildly concerning, but considering they're facing Spain and the Ottomans at once, it may not be that great for them. This is like a lay player just joining, just trying to, stabilize Venice, but it just did not work. Anyway, the Ottomans just snagged more of the Balkans, and they have a little revolt right there. I helped them out a little bit. And I now have Naples, which is pretty nice. At one point in the run, I did think of going to the Netherlands, like Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, that kind of area. But I didn't really want to that much. I probably could have invaded France at some point if I wanted to develop and that kind of stuff, but y'all might think it's a little bit boring if it is developed like an hour straight in game, which would be a couple minutes, with 1200 speed probably. But anyway, I have two navies at this point, one's in Granada, one's in Italy. And I prepare to invade France pretty soon, with them going AI pretty soon. Because the server is slowly dying. I just check out the culture map a little bit. Tell France about that Cuneo thing. Also, side note, the Papal States had a pretty interesting game. They just went to North Africa. I'm not really sure a bunch of people going to North Africa, honestly, or playing Italy, just expand in Italy. If you're playing the Papal States, you should probably go south or something. Not into Africa, just south into Italy. Because they're just probably going to be a band or something like that. But anyway, there's a war going on. The Ottomans are basically facing off against a couple of people, Austria and Russia. And I'm politely doing nothing in the war as of now. I do plan on entering at some point, but the Ottomans get revolt and they just leave before I actually do anything. So I spawned 60k troops just for them to beat an AI, so that's really nice. But regardless, I just siege down Turkey. And I go right into the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent. Me and Russia are having a nice old time sieging the Middle East. Austria is over in Egypt, and I asked Austria to send me some money for the war, because I'm probably going to go bankrupt anyway. I think I was mid-dev max too, so, there's that. But anyway, I develop a little bit more, and it goes pretty well. The Ottomans look like that. The Ottomans also are like siege for like a really long time in games, so there's that. Just now, like roughly, I entered the Lima trade nodes, so 300 years in game to get into Peru. That's not bad timing. But anyway, I developed some land. Georgia's still in Honduras. I do buy Georgia's colony eventually, but not right now. Anyway, my goal here is to just like try and narrow down Peru and fully colonize the thing. I built some marketplaces in the Caribbean, but it really doesn't do that much. Anyway, around here I asked Georgia to try and buy Honduras, but they're still in the war with the Ottomans. Yeah, the Ottoman war lasted for a really long time, honestly. This is 12.5 times speed, so this is like actually a long time. Like 3 years just passed over me looking at Spain trying to develop it here. But the Ottomans are still getting sieged down by Georgia and Russia. France does plan on actually leaving soon. You can probably tell because the video is almost over. Well, but I'm able to buy Georgia's colony from them eventually, and then I plan to invade France from Mexico. One thing about Georgia's colony is that it has El Salvador, which is part of the Mexico trade node. So I'm able to just justify on the entire Mexican region, which is pretty good for me, I'd say. It may reduce costs by a lot. This war does bankrupt me, which is, being pretty historical to Spain. But I form an army up, and I go ahead and just invade France. France's army gets defeated in detail near the Spanish border, and I cross right into France proper, and it goes pretty well. I just rock my way through France, right to Paris, and I'm basically just carpet sieging the entire thing at this point. I'm a little bit lacking on troops, so I spawn like 40 more-ish. And kick France basically right out of France. Now they're in Switzerland. Despite me basically wiping the floor with France and Europe, their war goal is still over in the Americas, so there's that. But still, I'm doing quite alright. I spawn some troops, send them over the Atlantic, and try and secure Mexico, because France does have some troops in the Americas, the AI spawn some troops there. So there's that. Assuming any French player joined, the Europe area is completely sieged down, so well from my memory. So there's that. Also I'm stacking Mexico, so might not be quite ideal. Anyway, I'm just pushing right north through Texas and into Louisiana basically, and I take one to Mexico. Colonial wars tend to be really cheap, so that was pretty easy for me. But apparently Austria didn't peace out. He was asking me in game to peace out, but yeah, he's kind of giving me sack right now. So poor Austria. Anyway, I think this is a pretty decent Spanish Empire. I didn't actually get into lands in Germany just because I kind of really didn't want to. I probably could have hypothetically gotten Belgium at this point, but I also just kind of really didn't want to. Or Milan. But regardless, I'd say this is a pretty decent Spain run. At this point I'm just kind of developing, checking out the map. Which, it's an interesting map at this point. Pretty interesting map. Austria loses that war if you're wondering, by the way. Also, side note, Russia's an Austrian friend, so, yeah, there's that. And I assumed over the Ottomans a little bit, which me able to see got sort of partitioned. Anyway, around here wrapping up, I decided to send some people still in the server some money, just, to be nice. I'm making 50 a month in-game with the development, and trading stuff. But anyway, we're pushing in that video roughly. I have a Discord if you want to join it, so there's that. Hope you guys liked the video. See ya.